Some people think the scariest part of Halloween is ghosts and demons, but they've clearly never tried to break in a soakate. Forget haunted houses. Today we're talking about the 5 Louboutin nightmares that could come back to haunt your closet and your wallet if you don't shop wisely. From red souls that vanish faster than your paycheck to online sketchy deals. Watch this before you impulse buy a pair of red bottoms for your Halloween costume or add a soakate to your Christmas wish list. They say beauty is pain, but they never warned you about this type of pain. You saved and saved, and then you splurged on your dream pair only to end up with a nightmare. Today we're talking about every fashion lover's fantasy and sometimes their biggest regret. The iconic Christian Louboutin. And honestly, this is the best time of year to talk about red bottom nightmares because nothing completes your sexy Halloween costume more than a pair of iconic red bottoms. And it is that time of year when we are all thinking about which pair of Louboutins to add to our Christmas wish list. If you're new to the Louboutin world, there's a lot to think about when choosing your first pair. And I've seen so many people relive these same nightmares. I know myself, I've definitely made a couple of these mistakes. Maybe all of them, come to think of it. So let's talk about the 5 biggest Louboutin mistakes and how to avoid turning your luxury purchase into a horror story. Nightmare number 1, the wrong size horror. You think you found the perfect pair. That Cinderella moment, and then you wear them for a couple weeks and all of a sudden they're falling off your feet. And you realize that you bought the wrong size. Louboutins are notoriously challenging for figuring out your size. I know I've actually had 2 pairs that were too big, and now I've actually had 2 pairs that were too small. So it is definitely a challenge. This is a horror that almost every Louboutin lover experiences at some point in their journey. Louboutin shoes are meant to be tight, and they will break in and mold to your feet over time and get a lot bigger. But because of this, it's very challenging figuring out your size. How do you know if they're too small or if they're just feeling tight? You need to pick the perfect size because they are meant to be broken in and mold to your feet. Louboutin sizing is truly a haunted maze. There's so many factors to consider, from the material, the heel height, the style. There's so many different styles of Louboutins and they all fit differently. Then Louboutin has his own sizing tool, which is different than every other shoe out there. Your sizing will be all over the map. So sizing is definitely the number 1 horror for everyone. I think it's almost a rite of passage that every Louboutin lover ends up with at least 1 pair that is entirely too big for their feet. Don't worry though, I do have you covered. I have a full sizing guide that I created after surviving my own horror stories of choosing the wrong size. I also recommend running 3 heel tests at home that will help you determine whether or not the pair that you picked out is the correct size. I'll link those videos as well. I have one that is a more in-depth video that is less than 3 minutes, and then I do have a 15-second short as a refresher. Nightmare number 2, the wrong style horror. Louboutin has a wide variety of styles. He has a style for every shape of foot, from narrow, regular, wide, long toes, short toes. He has a shoe for you. But the problem is they all kind of look the same online, if I'm being honest. I remember spending hours poring over looking at the toe boxes between a Kate and a Pagal and a Hot Chick and trying to figure out what the difference was between them because they all look the same online. Just make sure that you're doing your research on the style to make sure it matches up with your foot shape. For example, all of the Kates, the So Kate, the K100, Sporty Kate, they were all made for narrow feet. So if you have narrow feet, that is an excellent choice for you. But if you have wide feet like myself, that's a terrible choice. That is the last style you should pick. For me, with wide feet, I like the Hot Chicks, the Pigalle Folies, I like the Miss Z, I like the Dolly. There's a million other styles out there that will fit my shape of foot, just not a Kate. So just research the style before you buy to make sure that it is a pair that is meant for your shape of feet. It's not that it can't work. You can possibly make a So-Kate work if you have wide feet. In fact, I'm testing out this theory right now. But you're going to be so much better off if you pick a style, especially as your first pair, if you pick a style that is meant for your foot shape. The wrong style horror includes your lifestyle. Make sure that they fit your lifestyle. Make sure that you're buying a shoe that you're actually going to wear, that you can handle the heel height, that you like the color, that it matches a lot of things in your wardrobe. Don't buy some crazy, yellow, green, blue, whatever, if it's not going to fit your wardrobe. Don't let your closet become simply a museum for beautiful shoes. The So-Kate is honestly the perfect example of picking out the wrong style because it is one of the most beautiful and iconic styles out there, but it's also one of the hardest to walk in because it's 120 millimeters. And it's also one of the most narrow styles. One of the most well-known legends is that a lot of first-time Louboutin lovers will go into the store, they'll pick out a So-Kate because it looks great, and they try them on in the store and they love how they look. But then the minute they start wearing them out, they realize that they are the absolute wrong style for their feet. They're never going to wear them. They're too tall. They're uncomfortable. They're too narrow. They're squeezing on their toes. So that is the perfect example of picking the wrong style. The So-Kate honestly is one of those styles where only a few people can actually pull it off day to day. So more than any other style, you will find a So-Kate on the pre-loved marketplace because of this, because it's the one that is most widely purchased and then regretted later on. Nightmare number 3. The indestructible illusion. Luxury does not mean immortal, and designer does not mean indestructible. Sometimes we forget that. Quality does not necessarily mean that you can go hiking in your So-Kates and have them last. It's just not gonna happen. Designer does not mean indestructible. Unfortunately, it does not. And it's easy to assume that it does because these are really expensive shoes. You would think that they're gonna last forever. And honestly, most of them do, but not without maintenance. Unfortunately, not without maintenance. They do require quite a bit of maintenance, and you're going to have to factor that in over time. The best example is the red bottoms, because most people assume that they're going to stay red forever, but they won't. They are very delicate. Those beautiful red bottoms are actually red paint. So the minute you step out onto pavement, they're done for. They're done for. You will start to see some of that red paint chip away and reveal the raw leather underneath. This is the biggest shock for new Louboutin lovers because you assume that that beautiful Chinese red mirror-like finish is going to stay there forever, and it doesn't. It happens to every new Louboutin owner. You take that first step out into the real world and bam, your red bottoms get a reality check. You look down and suddenly it looks like they have a battle scar. It's so shocking and heartbreaking the first time, especially if you don't expect it. I know it may seem like a tragedy, but this is a rite of passage. The red soles are meant to be lived in, not kept pristine like a coffin. Don't panic and send them immediately to the cobbler. Wait until the red bottoms wear thin enough to show the base layer underneath. And that's your cue to go ahead and take them to your trusted cobbler and have a Casali resole. So don't fear your first battle scars. They are a rite of passage. I personally have learned to love that look because it shows that they're worn, it shows that they're wearable, it shows that you use them, and it also shows that they're authentic. That is proof that they are authentic because that is a very hard thing for fakes to replicate. So I actually like seeing the wear on the red bottoms. And then once I get to a point where I feel like they're ready to be resold, I just send them in and I have Casali red mirror soles put on them, and those will last forever. So they will stay red forever. Other things to consider are heel taps. Those tiny little heel taps on the So-Kates and the Hot Chicks, they're not going to last forever. You will need to replace them after a few wears. That's not much material to go through. So you do need to maintain them. You will need to replace the heel taps. You may get a scuff on the leather that needs to be fixed by a cobbler. So just remember that whatever shoes you're picking out, remember that there is going to be maintenance involved in them. So while it is very disheartening in the beginning to realize how much maintenance may be required with your Louboutins, it's really not the horror you think it is. Louboutins that are maintained will last you years, maybe even decades. In my eyes, they truly can be immortal as long as you maintain them. Nightmare number 4, the counterfeit curse. With Louboutins being one of the most iconic designer shoes, you know there's going to be tons of fakes out there trying to replicate that, and that is very, very true. I see fakes all the time. I have seen so many fakes in the pre-loved marketplace, and unfortunately eBay and Poshmark, Vestair, Vinted, Mercari, Depop, they're not going to remove the listings, so you really have to be careful when you're shopping on the pre-loved marketplace so you don't end up being the victim of the counterfeit curse. Counterfeits can be super convincing. They are getting better and better every day. Do not trust the authentication processes on the pre-loved marketplace. They're not here for you. They're here for the retailer. And a lot of those websites that are there to authenticate your Louboutins virtually with a photo are really just a scam. I have personally fallen victim to this curse. In the beginning, when I didn't know a lot about Louboutins, the second pair that I purchased ended up being fake. And that was an absolute nightmare. But I learned from it. I made myself an expert now at authenticating Louboutins, not just current styles, but even older Vero styles. So now I'm able to help out other people, help them avoid being a victim of the counterfeit curse. If you are shopping pre-loved, there are multiple options that can help you out. I do have a 4-part course that is very extensive. It's about an hour and a half long that will make you an expert. I also have a condensed version of that course that is only an hour and it's in one video. And I started a Reddit Louboutin Legit Check community, which is full of hundreds of other wonderful people just like myself who love helping others out. On top of that, I did create an Adobe document that goes through all of the key items that I look for when trying to authenticate a pair of Louboutins, and I'll link all of those things below in the description to help you out. So if your dream is to buy a pair of Louboutins and you're looking at the pre-loved marketplace, don't worry, we got you covered so you won't become the victim of the counterfeit curse. Nightmare number 5 is the break-in breakdown. Some people think the scariest part of Halloween is ghosts and demons, but they've clearly never tried to break in a Socate. Louboutins are notorious for being uncomfortable. But you may know this and you go into the store, you try on a pair, you're wearing them in the store, and they actually feel pretty decent. So you think, oh, I can wear these are great, right? And then you take them home, you try to wear them out on date night, and your feet are screaming bloody murder. They are dying within a half hour. This is because Louboutins require breaking in, extensive breaking in to make them truly, truly comfortable. The good thing is that most styles can become comfortable-ish. I don't want to say comfortable, but they can become comfortable-ish if you spend time breaking them in at home. They will become wearable. They will become wearable to where you can actually take them out on date night, maybe even to work. I've seen people that wear Socates to work. So it is definitely possible, but you need to know that up front is that you will need to invest some time at home breaking them in before you wear them out. If you're wondering the best way to break them in, I do have a full breaking in video where I run you through my entire process that I go through for each new pair of shoes. And I do have a full little calendar that you can track your progress as well at home with each new pair. Alright, there you have it, guys. The 5 Louboutin nightmares. Now you can turn your horror story into a happily ever after. If you've survived one of these already, let me know your Louboutin horror story in the comments. If you're new to walking in heels and you don't know if you have the confidence yet to do it, stay tuned because I will be publishing a video very soon on how you can build confidence and teach yourself how to walk in heels from the comfort of your own home.